In today's show, the Blazers go into Toronto and handle the Raptors in a homecoming and impressive game for Shaden Sharpe. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen and tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, talk about a 112-103 win for the Blazers. They go into Toronto and win their second straight game and keep their slim, but I guess still very real play-in hopes alive. Very real on account of how bad the Kings are. Shout out to the Wizards. And they do this behind a darn good game from Deni Avdija and an excellent game from Shaedon Sharpe. Couple injuries to an already shorthanded team. We'll get into all of that and recap the game, as well as talk about the fact that they're not dead yet. They're not dead yet. The Blazers, because they keep winning and because maybe some other teams around them don't care, like the Raptors, or are inept, like the Suns and the Kings, a chance at a postseason berth is at least still mathematically possible as we head into the final week of the season. Who would have freaking guessed it? Let's do it, though. Fastest recap in the West, then we'll get into all of that. Blazers in Toronto, continuing a road trip, and find themselves down a couple after one. Raptors led by as many as 9 in the first quarter. Neither team led by double digits through the first 3 quarters. The Raptors' 9-point lead in the first quarter would be the largest that either team had in the opening 3 quarters. But the Blazers scored 29 points in the first quarter. Deni Avdija had 14. Shaedon Sharpe had 11. If you're scoring at home, that's 25 of the Blazers' 29 points coming from Deni and Shaedon. Those two dudes carried the load. Portland is playing without Scoot Henderson, missed this game still in the concussion protocol. They're playing without Anthony Simons, missing his second straight game with a forearm contusion, and the sort of long-termers are long-term. DeAndre Ayton, we're not seeing him again this season. Rob Williams obviously out for the year. And while Jeremy Grant has been listed as doubtful in recent games, I would be, at this point, stunned if Jeremy Grant plays another minute this season for the Portland Trailblazers. It would blow me away. Dude's never played a game after mid-March. He's subject to the Ides of March, and also has not played a game in April since 2021. This is who they are. But the Scoot injury and the Anthony Simons injury are more short term. Although we'll see as the Blazers are on a back-to-back tomorrow in Chicago, a pretty big one, quite frankly, if either of those two gentlemen play. But it's a 2-point game after one, in part because the shorthand Blazers are getting carried by Shaedon Sharpe, getting carried by Deni Avdija. The second quarter was awful. I mean that as an appreciator of bad basketball, but neither team cracked 20 points. The Raptors won the second quarter 19-18. Yuck. And Toronto goes into the half up 50-47. Blazers found their offense in the locker room. Deni Avdija finished with 26 points in this game. He had 20 in the first half. He carried the offense as he has of late. It was another just one of those games where the threes fall. It's not like shot the lights out, but he makes some threes. He continues to just be a beast, driving to the rim and using his shoulder and his off arm to get him some space with the touch. He scored in transition. The big first half from Deni. The Blazers, though, needed to find some offense, and they did. 36 in that third quarter, and they lead 83-76 after 3. But as I mentioned, the Sharpe and Avdija carried the load. The Blazers have just 5 bench points heading into the third quarter. All 5 of them coming from Matisse Thybulle, in part because Duop Reith left the game in the second quarter with what the Blazers called a right knee injury. No specifics on that, and I don't believe anyone's on the road to ask for specifics on that. So, the bench is somewhat limited. offensively with it's Matisse Thybulle and obviously his own limitations there on offense, although he did have a leak out dunk in the third quarter, had a steal and a leak out dunk. But, Chris Murray and Jabari Walker, that's like really your bench. Delano Banton is playing in with the starting lineup, but because the Blazers are particularly shorthanded after three quarters, and then Toumani Camara gets hurt. He didn't play in the fourth quarter at all. 4:04 left in the third quarter. He leaves. Later be ruled out with a left ankle injury, and would not return. So, you get to about the 8 minute. You've played 8 minutes of the second half, already relatively shorthanded, already missing Duop Reith, and now you're missing Toumani Camara. You're going to have to turn to your bench. There's just only so many minutes you can get Denny to play. There's only so many minutes you can get Shaedon Sharpe to play, particularly on the first night of a back-to-back heading into international travel. It's not a game when you want to, run up 43 minutes, put dudes on a plane, have them land late at night and go through customs. And then, it's like, that's just a long trip. It's a long trip. It is a night where you would prefer to keep minutes relatively down, right? If you're trying to win both games. So Chauncey Billups does what he has to do. He puts Ryan Rupert in to start the third quarter because that's who he has, right? That's who's available on the bench for him. And Rupes ends up playing the entire fourth quarter, and then the Raptors kind of do what they do. They did the Blazers a solid. We saw this before. When Toronto was in Portland, they did something very similar. At the 7:33 mark, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Jamal Shead all went to the bench and didn't come back. Saw this in Portland, pulling Scotty Barnes similarly with about midway through the quarter, and Jakob Poeltl midway through the fourth quarter, and kind of just like, this is what the Raptors are going to do. If they win, all right, cool, but they're not particularly interested in winning. Like this, I would say, I think the kindest way to say it is like, it's not a priority for them. Their priority is something else. If Cole Swider helps them win, they'll take it. Go Orange, but like, it's just... even if you were saying like, oh, we're going to, we want to get minutes, we want to have like, be judicious with minutes and be careful with minutes. You would stagger Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett, right? Like you wouldn't play all of your best dudes at the same time, right? You would split up their minutes in order to win. Like this is just the weird April basketball in the NBA. I was going to call it March, but April basketball in the NBA. It's like, there are teams that that do not care about victories. The Raptors are like, yeah, we're 12th in the East. We probably can't fall that much further. In fact, the Raptors have been beating up on bad teams. It's kind of the exact same scenario they had when they came into Portland, as they'd won 3 in a row against bad teams. Now they're back with a little winning streak against bad teams. Like, no way, absolutely not. We have to. Emmanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl are resting, and we're not going to play our guys in the final 7 minutes. And the Blazers, in some ways, followed suit. They came out of that same timeout with Justin Minaya on the court, along with Chris Murray, Shaedon Sharpe, Jabari Walker, and along with Ryan Rupert. Kamara's not going to play, but Denny Avdija didn't come back in the final 7 minutes. He didn't get back because the Blazers kind of just had it in hand. And then again, the Raptors were not playing their players for trying to win. It is what it is. We've seen the Blazers do this exact thing a couple years ago during the Wemby draft, pulling 20-year-old Shaedon Sharpe off the court to play John Butler Jr. Like, teams are incentivized by the league to do this. It's weird. It just is what it is right now. That's how it's going to work in the league until they change the rules and change the incentives and change the lottery system, et cetera, et cetera. And if they don't, you'll get teams that do what the Raptors are doing and saying, it's April. It'd be better if we lose. Or if we win, so be it. At that point, the Blazers led by 7 heading into the third quarter. That was their largest lead of the game. They led 83-76. They had not led by more than 7 points the entire game. At the time of the sub, they led by 9, 94-85. That was their largest lead of the game at the time. They not a double-digit lead. The game's not over. If you sub those dudes out for 2 minutes and bring them back, bring them back at the 4.5-minute mark or whatever it is, or even the 4-minute mark, and say, okay, we'll make a push. That's another thing. But this was an entirely different beast. Raptors got as close as 6 when Ochai Agbaji hit a 3, and the Blazers pushed the lead to as many as 15 in the fourth quarter before holding on for a 9-point victory. Your final 112-103. That's your mediumist recap in the West. Was going to be fast, but I got off on a little Raptors tangent. Shaedon Sharpe rocked in this game. He rocked in this game. This was as good as maybe he's played all season long. 36 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, a ton of primary creation responsibility. I thought his decision-making was pretty good on the ball. I thought obviously he made some shots, which always looks good. Let's talk all about Shaedon Sharpe in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you about 5-Hour Energy. Look, there's more sun, which means there's more stuff to do. There's more things to go do outside. There's more time in your day with nice weather to go do things. And you might just need a refreshing pick-me-up to help you get through your already normal life responsibilities with family and work and all of those things, plus a little extra daylight hours to get out and do things. So whether you're staying up late recording a podcast in a nondescript hotel room somewhere in the state of Oregon, or you're squeezing in a round of golf after work, or you're just trying to keep up with the day-to-day grind of being a busy adult human, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. It's got the great on-the-go convenience. So whether you are traveling or whether you're just trying to living on the East Coast, trying to stay up and watch your Blazers as they keep their playoff hopes alive, 5-Hour Energy is easy to grab and can keep you feeling refreshed. So head on over to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or your own 24-pack to get them delivered right to your door. You need one now? Go grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. Today's program is also brought to you by the good folks over at Wayfair. It's spring. You might need a new what's called a refresher for your home, for your office space, for any place you call your own. And it's also project season. So not only can you get the perfect piece of furniture, but you can also get the right type of storage or cabinets or what have you to keep your space organized, clean, less cluttered, and make you feel great. Plus, they got quality products for every budget. Right now, we're redoing the laundry room in our home, and we've needed some extra shelving to go with a new washer and dryer. What a gift to get more shelving in your laundry room. And Wayfair has all the styles that we could possibly choose from, plus things that meet our budget. So we're not breaking the bank to set up a spot in the basement where we're going to put towels and cleaning products. Listen, it's easy to navigate on their website. They got a million different brands, and you're going to find something that meets your budget and also meets the look that you are picturing for your space. Wayfair makes home improvement easy. Get started right now at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right. We've talked a bunch about Deni Avdija over the last, a million months, but also just like recently we've talked a lot about Deni Avdija. So we're gonna dial back Deni a little bit, but I do want to say this quickly before we talk a lot about Shaden Sharp. Ho-hum, Deni Avdija had 26 points, 15 rebounds, and 6 assists. Just a cool 25, 15, and 5 game. Whatever. Who cares? No, I'm kidding. He was good. We're just not going to talk about him a bunch in this, so I wanted to let you know. I want to focus on Shaden Sharp here. The last 2 games, Sharp has stepped up in very serious ways. 33 against the Hawks, 36 against the Raptors. These aren't the best teams in the NBA, but the Raptors are sneaky good on defense. And back-to-back 30-point games against anybody is serious business. It doesn't matter who the competition is. You know what you do against bad teams? You give them a 30-piece. That's standard. But I don't even think the Hawks and Raptors are bad. I just mean to say, like, we're not talking about him doing this against the world champs and saying this is proof that he could do it on the highest level. What I'm saying is Shaden Sharp's hooping, and he's playing against teams that can't handle him, and he's making sure that they know they can't handle him. But again, the Raptors are pretty good on defense. On the year, they're 15th, right? They're an average defense if you take the whole season. But since January 1st, they're 7th according to Clean Glass on defense. They've been top 10 since January 1st. That's 43 games. It's basically half the year of them being a top 10 defense. Since the All-Star break, they're 3rd. This is a good defensive team. And you saw it against the Blazers. The way they play, like the Hawks, I thought specifically Atlanta I thought they looked just kind of sloppy in that game. I don't think they played particularly stout defense. They're thin and up front with injuries and stuff that it's like they just didn't have the size behind Kongwu to be in, with apologies to Don Barlow, but the Raptors are obviously missing some of their dudes, right? With no Pirtle specifically, although I think Jakob Pirtle was better on defense in a prior version of himself. I think this version of Jakob Pirtle is actually a better offensive player than he is defensive player. But the Raptors are straight up good on defense, and unlike the Hawks, who I think kind of meh, they get after it, right? Jamal Shead gets after it, defends way away from the rim. Jonathan Mobo defends way away from the rim. Scotty Barnes puts pressure on you out at 30 feet. Same with RJ Barrett. They have lengthy, willing defenders that put their pressure scheme on, such that the Blazers were, bringing Donovan Clingan out to near half court to set screens to free ball handlers to clear stuff up, or in some cases in the half court they were intentionally not bringing a high screen to say, like, we don't want to introduce another defender into this mess. We don't want double teams. We don't want you to see hedges. Like just play against single coverage and see if you can get to the rim. I thought Denny did a good job in the first half of exploiting single cover, exploiting that defensive pressure. And I thought Sharp, as the game went on, got better and better in the variety of ways he attacked it. Particularly early in the game, the mid-range was cooking. He was staying low on that dribble, getting to the space he wanted, and then using his athleticism and that bounce to get those separation jump shots off. He is such a good touch shooter from the mid-range. I think sometimes maybe he relies on it a little too much, or he can settle for it when he has guys that he can drive. But I thought in this game, he picked his spots really well from the mid-range. Sharp also made threes. And it's like he finishes with 36 points on 14 of 23 shooting. It was 4 of 10 from three. One of those threes was up against the clock at the end of the quarter. It was like a heave with a second and a half left from near the half court. So let's call it 4 of 9. But which would make him pretty absurd 10 of 13 from 2, but one of those 2 points he misses was a 3-pointer with his toes on the line. So you can cut it either way. We're cutting out a 3, but then we're adding 1 back in. So it was actually 4 of 10 from 3 because he intended to shoot a 3 on that one. But a pretty absurd 10 of 12 from 2, just a monster night for him. If there was a knock on this particular game, is that he didn't get to the free throw line until late. He didn't get to the free throw line in the opening 3 quarters, and he only ended up taking 4 total. But to see Sharp play this way, in this manner against the Raptors, this was a give me the ball, I know I can score type of game. And that's what you want to see from Sharp. Dude is so skilled, right? He's so skilled. He's not a great shooter. He has not been to this date in his career. So a night like this where he does shoot 40% from 3 or better, depending on how you want to cut it. But when he does shoot 40% from 3, it feels not outlierly, but it feels like, what if he did that? It feels like, okay, yeah. Circle that type of game. Because if he does play at that level and play at that level consistently and shoot at that level consistently, then he can score from everywhere, and then he's almost impossible to guard. But the ability just to get to his spots off the dribble is special. He's a great finisher at the rim. He's turned into, I think last year he left a little to be desired at the rim. This year, that's the biggest leap Sharp has made. And I've said that in the program before, is that he was gone from a not very good finisher that had all this talent, and it was not clear exactly why he wasn't getting there, to this year's just straight up very good at it. And even if you the Blazers have kind of said this a bunch on the broadcast to the point where it's after February 1st, blah, blah, blah. It's let's just take the whole sample size. He's an above average finisher for the whole season. He's been elite in the back half of the year, but he's been an above-average finisher all season. He's really good at it. The strength to hang in the air, to take contact. You watch Shaden drive on layups. He rarely falls backwards. He'll take hits and fall down, but he rarely gets hit in the air and just bounces back off somebody. He's strong. He is his athleticism is that strength and that balance to go along with that crazy leaping ability. He's special in that way. The ability to get to the rim off the dribble is superstar stuff, right? We talked about it a bunch with Denny. Like, what makes Denny special is the downhill skill, which is like, well, I want him to be just a downhill player as much as he possibly can, because that's unique, right? Is the ability to drive. And Sharp isn't as like downhill straight line drivey as Denny, but he is someone who, when he gets space, can make those moves. I thought his handle was really good in this game in a way that it always isn't. I thought he kept his dribble alive in some some moments against pressure defense, and particularly early in the game, patient, keeping his dribble low and getting past pressure defense to get to his spots. I thought he passed well in this game. He had 5 assists, but I thought he made better passes than the assist numbers suggest. When there's only 5 bench points and Delano Banton doesn't really make 3-pointers, there weren't big assists to be had, right? It wasn't like a lot of guys that would, him and Denny had 72. Everybody else had like 20, a little more than 25, something, or 30, I think, if I'm doing the math quickly off the top of my head. It's like, yeah. If it was, it wasn't like this was going to be a heavy assist night just based on the way Blazers scored early in this game. So, like, I thought he passed well. Obviously, he shot well. I thought he did a good, like, some of his other weaknesses stuff is just like how he uses his handle. I thought he used his handle well. All of this is to say this was a freaking great Sharp game. And if you watch that, you know that. And I think 2 things. One, the dude is improving. He is a better basketball player now than he's ever been. He's just getting better. That's what you want to see. That's the whole point. Is that you want him to get better, right? Like, he's young and improving, and you want to see that. And this is year 3 after a largely lost year 2. He, obviously had a weird journey where he didn't play college basketball. Like, he just had a ton of reps. Like, some of this is just like, get Shaedon Sharpe more reps. And I also think some of this is this Shaedon Sharpe thing. When he has been given this role, and we've seen this in the past from him as well, when he's been given this role of like, hey, dude, we need you to score. We've seen the best of Shaedon Sharpe. We saw it briefly for a period last year before he got hurt. We saw it his rookie season as well. It's like when he, there was like a moment his rookie season where he's like chasing, high pick and roll past Rudy Gobert to score at the rim to beat the T-Wolves. They had to bench him because he was too good in that ball in your hand creator role. And then we saw it, briefly when everybody was hurt and he was playing 40-some minutes a night his second season. And we've seen it in flashes here and there. Like, I don't mean to say that Shaedon Sharpe has like not been good. I'm not trying to paint that. But like this, the style that he played here, and the understanding of accepting the responsibility. I think one of the challenges for Sharpe, and I think this will be, I think about this 2 ways. Can he do this all the time? Let's talk about the 2 ways that I mean, can he do this all the time in the 3rd segment? Plus, we'll talk about the Blazers play-in hopes because they're not dead yet. Join me in that 3rd segment, won't you? First, though, let's talk about OpenPhone. Listen, if you have a small business, you know that you are doing so many things. And your personal phone can become your business phone. And before you know it, you're juggling customer calls all day and night. And as your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal phone number. That's where OpenPhone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help keep your work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a couple coffees, you can get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. OpenPhone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your calls and action items, and the second you hang up, you'll be able to check all of those out. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. And right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's OpenPhone, OpenPhone.com/lockedonnba for 20% off 6 months. OpenPhone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have an existing number, OpenPhone will port it over at no extra charge. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond, and you, dear listener, are still listening to Locked On Blazers. There's two things I think about Shaden Sharpe in terms of playing with this level of assertiveness. It's not just the shooting, right? Like, I think I mentioned this on yesterday's program, or a couple days ago. Yesterday's program, interview with Jared Dubin. Check it out if you haven't. But after the Hawks game, I mentioned this, is that I think it's kind of a myth that Shaden Sharpe doesn't shoot enough. That's not his problem. Field goal attempts are not really his problem. It's the type of shots. It's when he settles for jumpers, when he could attack. It's when he takes too many step back threes, when he could just cut out that diet. He's so good from the mid-range and so good at attacking the rim that sometimes it feels like he quote unquote settles, or if doesn't settle, just like can't get free because of his handle and has to take longer jump shots that are just like more difficult. He's taking more challenging shots due to lack of skill or due to sometimes just like he gets a switch and he says, yeah, I'm shooting, right? He's just like kind of predetermined type of stuff. But I don't think it's field goal attempts. I don't think that's his problem at all. It's types of shots. It's when and how to attack. But it isn't volume. But this game was different. It wasn't just that the volume was there. It was that the assertiveness to know you can attack. It was to play like you're the best offensive player on the court. Sharpe does this in fits and spurts. He is somewhat inconsistent with it. And young players struggle with consistency. That's life, right? Like that's both part of like the challenge of young players maturing, and it's also what separates, bench players from starters, starters from stars, stars from all-stars from superstars, etc., right? How often can you hit your peaks? So some of this is just like the nature of Shaedon Sharpe being 21 years old, 22 years old. But what I mean by the two things that I think that this like afflicts Sharpe is, one, I think sometimes he has trouble playing like I'm the best dude on the court. Give me the damn ball. I can get wherever I want. When he isn't in this role where it's like, it's only you and Denny who can really score on offense. We need it to be you. Take the ball and go get it. Like where the ask is so obvious, where it's like he is tasked with doing specifically this. I think sometimes he can defer a little bit. Sometimes he can get lost a little bit. And then the field goal attempts, he's like, oh, I'll just take one. Like I'll just take it in the flow because I know I need to get a shot up, as opposed to saying, I'm going to hunt and get my shot and be patient. So here's what I mean by the two ways. If that is a problem with Shaedon Sharpe, where sometimes he can not have his foot on the gas in terms of taking the smartest shots and being the most assertive to get to his best shots when he is playing as the part of as sort of like a tertiary option, as a part of a flow offense, or if it's not even a tertiary option, but just like he's not going to have the ball as much in his hands because Anthony Simons is out there, because Scoot Henderson is out there, and because he's going to touch it less. He's maybe a little more jumpy to get mid-rangers up when he could attack, or step back threes up when he could attack, et cetera, et cetera. If that's a problem with him because of sharing the court with other folks, then the Blazers need to work with him to recognize that and play with the same mode regardless. Or they have to make roster decisions so Shaedon Sharpe gets the damn ball in his hands more. That's the other one. It cuts either way. If it's something they say like, hey, you can work with him on just sort of a mental approach in terms of playing the same way all the time, even when you have to share the ball, because obviously there's only one ball, and the best version of the Blazers are going to have a bunch of good players who can score, and Shaedon Sharpe is going to be one of those really good players who can score. But it's like, you can't build a championship level team that only has two dudes who can dribble into their own shot, so you get like you get carte blanche, but also don't have to share, right? Carte blanche and a big old cart. I don't think that's what the cart means in that phrase, but you know what I'm trying to get at. But if it is a problem for him, there is another world in which the Blazers just have to say the best version of Shaedon Sharpe has the ball in his hands more. Our roster needs to have more play finishers, more shooters, more spacers, because we need to make sure that Shea is someone who plays with the ball in his hands more often. It can be both. It can be a mixture of Shaedon Sharpe getting there and a mixture of the Blazers making decisions such that Sharpe has more on-ball opportunities. And this is a challenge moving forward because Denny Avdia looks like a dude who needs more on-ball opportunities. Scoot Henderson, the only way he's probably ever going to be good in an offensive way for a long time is ball in his hands type of decision maker. If Sharpe is that too, part of the challenge of the next good version of this team, and the Blazers have been pretty darn good since the middle of January, is that you have to figure out how to balance that thing. And I think that's part of Sharpe's challenge. I went a little long, so I'm not going to go too hard on the play and stuff, but just know that the Blazers' dream is still alive. They sit 3 back in the loss column from the Kings in 10th place. They could make the play-in if you believe. The Kings have 6 games remaining. The Blazers have 5. In between the Blazers and the Kings is the 11th place Phoenix Suns that are a mess and have lost 4 in a row and are playing without Kevin Durant. Let's assume for now that the Suns are no good, which they aren't, but they are in the Blazers' way and could conceivably, with their up to 35 wins, could keep the Blazers out of their dreams of playing a postseason game and perhaps more. The most wins the Blazers could possibly get over their final, or to close out the season, is they could finish with 39. If they go 5-0 over these final 5 games, they could get to 39. The Kings, with 6 remaining, would have to go 2-4 or worse. 1-5, 0-6. Kings have lost 3 in a row and just lost to the Wizards in Washington. They're a mess. If the Blazers had won that game in Sacramento to kick off this trip, boy, would it be getting spicy for the 10th seed. But the Blazers got thrashed. They put up a stinker in Sacramento. They had a chance to not control their own destiny, but at least influence a great deal, and they didn't. And so now it's kind of in the hands of a mediocre to bad Kings team. If the Kings win a third game, if they go 3-3, the Blazers cannot catch them under any circumstances. If the Blazers... the Blazers have to find a way to win, to have 3 more victories than the Kings down the stretch of the season. That's how this is going to work. They need 3 more wins than the Kings. The Kings have 6 left. The Blazers have 5. There is a really big moment coming Friday. The Blazers, we're not talking tankathon, but we may in the future, play the Bulls. Second night of a back-to-back against Chicago. Chicago would leapfrog or fall below the Blazers in the lottery odds if they were to lose the game. They would flip-flop the odds standings. This would be a meaningful game for the Blazers' tank and lottery purposes if they lose to the Bulls. But if they beat the Bulls and the Kings, who play the Charlotte Hornets on continuing a road trip that runs through Cleveland and Detroit before 3 at home to close out the year, if the Kings stumble against the Bugs, a bad version of the Bugs, a beat up and bad version of an already bad team in Charlotte, then it is on like Donkey Kong. If they don't, if the Blazers lose to the Bulls and the Kings get a win against the Hornets, it starts to get like the Blazers basically have to win their final 4 games of the regular season, which is certainly doable, but not, but not guaranteed. And obviously, winning any 4 random games in the NBA is relatively hard, and there could be some challenging games depending on what the final weekend holds for the Blazers' two final opponents in Golden State and the Lakers. So we shall see, but I think Friday's a big one, and we will obviously keep an eye on that. I'm not going to do a podcast because that's not how the show works, but the Blazers will play the Bulls. Then they'll come home for a matinee against the San Antonio Spurs. Next time you hear my voice, we will talk about both those games. We'll talk about the standings, whichever way they have fallen. I think both of these Chicago and San Antonio games are fairly meaningful for the tank and are basically must-wins if you are a believer in the Blazers' postseason chances. That is going to do it for today's program. I appreciate you listening. Tell your friends about it. We'll do 5 of these again next week. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.